The laughter was too loud again. I stood in our kitchen doorway, watching my wife Vanessa throw her head back at something Brent Callahan had just whispered across our marble island. The sound cut through me like fingernails on glass, sharp, performative, designed to be noticed. She'd been doing it for months now, this theatrical giggling that made my teeth ache. "Nick!" Brent's voice boomed across the space between us. "There's the man of the hour." We were just talking about the Henderson acquisition. Right. At 10:30 on a Saturday night, in my kitchen, while my wife wore a silk robe that barely covered her thighs. Business discussions had really evolved since I'd last checked. "Fascinating stuff," I said, grabbing a beer from the fridge. The cold bottle felt good against my palm. Real. Unlike whatever performance was happening 3 feet away. Brent Callahan had been my business partner for 8 years. We'd built Harlow and Callahan Financial from nothing, me handling the forensic accounting, him managing client relations. He had the charm, I had the brains. It worked until it didn't. "Brent was just explaining how the quarterly projections need adjusting," Vanessa said, her fingers trailing along the granite countertop. "She'd painted her nails red yesterday. Fire engine red. She never painted her nails for me anymore." "Projections," I repeated, taking a long pull from my beer. "That's what we're calling it now?" The silence stretched thin. Brent's smile flickered for just a moment, there and gone, like a neon sign with faulty wiring. Vanessa's laugh died in her throat. "Well," Brent said, straightening his tie. "Who wore a tie on Saturday night?" "I should head out. Early morning tomorrow." "Sunday morning?" I asked. "What's open on Sunday morning, Brent?" "Church," he said quickly. Too quickly. Promised my mother I'd go to church. Brent Callahan's mother had been dead for 3 years. I'd sent flowers to the funeral. After he left, Vanessa busied herself cleaning glasses that were already clean. Her movements were sharp, efficient, angry. The silk robe whispered against her skin as she moved. "You were rude," she said without looking at me. "Was I?" "He's your business partner, Nick. Show some respect." Respect. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. I'd shown Brent Callahan plenty of respect over the years. I'd trusted him with my company, my livelihood, my friendship. Apparently, that wasn't enough for him. "How long?" I asked. She froze, a wine glass suspended halfway to the cabinet. "How long what?" "You know what?" The glass trembled in her hand. For a moment, I thought she might confess. Come clean. We could work through this like adults, like the couple we used to be before late-night client meetings and mysterious work trips became her specialty. Instead, she set the glass down carefully and turned to face me with that practiced smile I'd learned to hate. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. "You're being paranoid." Paranoid. That's what she called it when I noticed her phone buzzing at midnight. Paranoid when I asked about the new lingerie hidden in the back of her drawer. Paranoid when I wondered why our joint checking account showed charges for restaurants I'd never been to. "Right," I said. "Paranoid." She walked past me toward the stairs, her shoulder brushing mine. The contact felt cold, distant. At the doorway, she paused. "We're going to the Hendersons' anniversary party next weekend," she said. "Try to act normal." Normal. As if anything about our life had been normal since Brent started showing up at our house with increasing frequency, always with some urgent business matter that couldn't wait until Monday morning. I finished my beer in the empty kitchen, listening to her footsteps on the stairs above. The house felt hollow, like a shell of something that used to matter. Outside, I could hear Brent's Porsche purring to life in our driveway. The sound faded into the night, but the silence it left behind was deafening. My phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. "Check your email. A friend." The email contained a single attachment, a photo taken through a restaurant window. Vanessa and Brent, hands intertwined across a candlelit table, her lips pressed against his ear. The timestamp showed last Tuesday night. The same Tuesday she'd claimed to be working late on quarterly reports. I stared at the image until my eyes burned. Then I deleted it, cleared the trash, and went upstairs to bed. Vanessa was already asleep, or pretending to be. Her breathing was too controlled, too measured. Even in sleep, she was performing. But two could play that game. If she wanted to pretend everything was normal, I'd give her normal. I'd give her the performance of a lifetime. Because Nick Harlow might be many things: a forensic accountant, a trusting husband, a loyal friend, but he wasn't stupid. And he definitely wasn't paranoid. I was just getting started. The conference in Boston was my idea. 3 days of continuing education credits for financial professionals, the kind of mind-numbing seminars that made watching paint dry seem exciting. Normally, I'd have sent our junior associate. But this time, I wanted to be away. I wanted to see what happened when the cat was away from the mice. "You sure you need to go?" Vanessa asked, folding my shirts with unnecessary precision. "It seems like a waste of time." "Professional development," I said, watching her in the bathroom mirror as I shaved. "Besides, you'll have the house to yourself. You can catch up on those quarterly reports." Her hands stilled on the cotton fabric. "Right. Reports." I'd installed the security cameras 6 months ago, ostensibly to catch the package thieves that had been plaguing our neighborhood. Motion-activated, night vision, connected to an app on my phone. Vanessa had thought it was overkill. "What are we, Fort Knox?" She'd laughed. That genuine laugh, from back when her laughter still meant something. Now I was grateful for my paranoia. The drive to Boston took 4 hours. I checked into the Marriott, attended exactly 1 seminar on tax law changes, and spent the rest of the time monitoring my home security feed. For the first day, nothing. Vanessa came home at her usual time, heated up leftover Chinese food, watched Netflix until 11, went to bed alone. Day 2 was different. At 7:47 p.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I was sitting in the hotel bar, nursing a whiskey and pretending to read conference materials. The live feed showed Brent's Porsche pulling into my driveway. He had a key. My business partner had a key to my house. I watched him walk up to my front door like he owned the place. No hesitation, no looking around to see if neighbors were watching. He belonged there. The door opened before he could knock. Vanessa appeared in the frame, wearing a black dress I'd never seen before. Something expensive. Something that hugged every curve. She'd done her hair, put on makeup. For him. They kissed in my doorway. Not a friendly peck, not a greeting between colleagues. A real kiss, hungry and desperate, the kind she used to give me when we were newlyweds and couldn't keep our hands off each other. I closed the app. The whiskey burned going down, but not as much as the truth. I'd known, of course. Deep down in that place where instinct lived, I'd known for months. But knowing and seeing were different animals entirely. My phone rang. Eddie, my cousin, probably wondering why I was in Boston instead of watching the game with him at Murphy's Tavern. "How's the nerd convention?" he asked. "Educational," I said. "Eddie, hypothetical question. If you caught someone stealing from you, what would you do?" "Depends. We talking about money or something else?" "Something else. Something important." Eddie was quiet for a moment. He'd done 2 tours in Afghanistan before coming home to tend bar and fix motorcycles. He understood betrayal in ways most people didn't. "Well," he said finally, "I'd make sure they lost more than they took. Hypothetically." "Hypothetically, yeah. You okay, Nick?" "Just tired. Conference brain, you know?" After we hung up, I opened my laptop and did what I did best. I followed the money. Brent's personal accounts, our business accounts, the shell companies we'd set up for tax purposes. Numbers didn't lie, even when everything else did. What I found made my blood run cold. Brent had been moving money. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. Transfers to accounts I didn't recognize, payments to vendors that didn't exist. He'd been careful, spreading it out over months, using the shell companies to obscure the trail. But I was better at this than he was. I was better at this than almost anyone. By midnight, I had it mapped out. $300,000, skimmed from client accounts and funneled through a network of fake businesses, all of it leading back to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. My phone buzzed again. Another motion alert. This time, I didn't hesitate. I opened the app and watched my wife and my business partner in my living room, on my couch, doing things that made my stomach turn. The feed was silent, but I could imagine the sounds. I'd heard them before, back when they were meant for me. I screenshotted everything, the timestamps, the angles, the evidence of their betrayal playing out in high definition. Then I called room service and ordered another bottle of whiskey. Tomorrow, I'd drive home and pretend nothing had changed. I'd smile at Vanessa over breakfast and ask how her evening was. I'd shake Brent's hand at the office and discuss quarterly projections. But tonight, I planned. Tonight, I calculated exactly how much it was going to cost them to underestimate Nick Harlow. The answer, as it turned out, was everything. The hotel door opened at 2:47 p.m. on Thursday. I'd driven straight through from Boston, skipping the final day of seminars. The official story was food poisoning, a bad clam at the harbor restaurant. Vanessa had been appropriately sympathetic over the phone. "Poor baby," she'd cooed. "Come home and I'll take care of you." Right. Take care of me. I parked 3 blocks away and walked back, using the spare key hidden under the fake rock by the garden shed. The house was quiet, but not empty. I could hear voices upstairs, muffled by the bedroom door. My bedroom door. The stairs didn't creak if you stepped along the edges. I'd learned that during the first year of our marriage, sneaking up to surprise Vanessa with breakfast in bed. Now I used the same technique for a different kind of surprise. The door was ajar, just enough to see inside, to witness the final confirmation of what I already knew. Vanessa was there, tangled in our Egyptian cotton sheets with Brent Callahan. The same sheets we'd picked out together at Macy's 3 years ago, arguing over thread count like it mattered. "You said he wouldn't be back until tomorrow," Brent was saying, his voice thick with satisfaction. "He won't," Vanessa replied, tracing circles on his chest. "Nick's predictable. He'll stay for every boring seminar, take notes like a good little accountant." Good little accountant. 20 years of building a reputation, 8 years of partnership, 12 years of marriage, and that's what I was to them. Predictable, boring, safe. They were right about one thing. I was an accountant, but they'd forgotten the first part of my job description, forensic accountant. I found things people didn't want found. "When are you going to tell him?" Brent asked. "After the Henderson deal closes. Once the money's transferred, we can disappear. Start over somewhere warm." The Henderson deal. Our biggest client, a merger worth $15 million in fees. Money that was supposed to secure our company's future. Money that was apparently funding their escape plan. I backed away from the door, down the stairs, out of the house. They never heard me leave. Too busy planning their future to notice their past catching up with them. Back in my car, I made a phone call to someone I hadn't spoken to in 5 years. Detective Ray Hanley, Boston PD Financial Crimes Unit. We'd worked together on an embezzlement case that made the front page of the Globe. He owed me a favor. "Nick Harlow," he said when he picked up. "Thought you'd gone straight." "Mostly." "Ray, I need advice. Hypothetically speaking, if someone was embezzling from their business partner, what kind of evidence would you need?" "Bank records, transaction logs, paper trail showing intent. Why? You got a case for me?" "Maybe. How long does it take to freeze assets once charges are filed?" "With the right judge? 24 hours. Nick, you want to tell me what's really going on?" "Not yet, but soon." That evening, I played the perfect husband. Asked about Vanessa's day, listened to her lies about client meetings and paperwork. She was good at it, I had to admit. Smooth, convincing, concerned about my food poisoning. "You look pale," she said, touching my forehead. "Maybe you should see a doctor." Her wedding ring felt cold against my skin. I wondered when she'd started taking it off for Brent. "I'm fine," I said. "Just need rest." But I didn't rest. While Vanessa slept beside me, I worked. Laptop balanced on my knees, I traced every transaction Brent had made in the past year. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. Money flowing out just before major deposits came in. Timing designed to avoid detection during routine audits. He'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. By morning, I had enough evidence to destroy him. But destruction wasn't enough. I wanted them to understand what they'd lost. I wanted them to feel the same hollow ache that had been eating at my chest for months. I wanted justice. And if justice wasn't available, I'd settle for revenge. The alarm went off at 7. Vanessa stirred beside me, her hair spread across the pillow like spilled wine, beautiful even now, even knowing what she was. "Morning," she mumbled, rolling toward me. "Feeling better?" "Much better," I said, and for the first time in months I wasn't lying. I felt better than I had in years. Friday morning at Harlow and Callahan Financial felt like any other day. Coffee brewing in the break room, phones ringing, the gentle hum of productivity. Brent was already at his desk when I arrived, looking refreshed and satisfied. He probably was. "Nick, good to have you back. How was Boston?" "Educational," I said, setting my briefcase down. "Learned something new every day." His smile was perfect. White teeth, practiced sincerity, not a trace of guilt. He'd always been good at compartmentalizing. It's what made him an excellent salesman, and, apparently, an even better liar. "Coffee?" he offered, already standing. "You look like you need it." "Thanks. Black, no sugar." He knew how I took my coffee. We'd been friends for 8 years, partners for most of that. He'd been the best man at my wedding, had given a speech about loyalty and brotherhood that made Vanessa cry. I wondered if they'd laughed about that later, in private moments between the sheets. "So," he said, handing me the steaming mug, "I've been thinking about the Henderson deal. We should accelerate the timeline." "Accelerate how?" "Move the closing up. Strike while the iron's hot. I've already talked to their CFO. They're eager to finalize." Of course they were. The sooner the money changed hands, the sooner Brent could disappear with his cut. And my wife. "Interesting timing," I said, sipping the coffee. It tasted bitter, but everything did lately. "Vanessa mentioned you two have been working closely on the projections." Something flickered in his eyes, just for a second, like a shadow passing over the sun. "She's been very helpful," he said carefully. "Sharp mind for numbers." Vanessa had a liberal arts degree and couldn't balance a checkbook to save her life, but she had other skills Brent apparently valued. "I'll need to review the documentation," I said. "Make sure everything's clean for the auditors." "Of course, though honestly, Nick, you worry too much. Sometimes you just have to trust people." Trust people. Rich, coming from him. I spent the morning doing what I did best, digging through financial records with the patience of an archaeologist and the instincts of a bloodhound. What I found confirmed my worst suspicions and revealed new ones. The Henderson deal wasn't just about the $15 million in fees. Brent had structured the transaction to create a window, a 48-hour period between when the funds transferred and when they'd be audited. Enough time to move money offshore and disappear. But there was more. Hidden in the subsidiary accounts, I found evidence of other thefts, smaller amounts, spread over years. Brent hadn't just decided to betray me. He'd been doing it all along. The affair with Vanessa was just the cherry on top of a very expensive sundae. My phone buzzed, a text from Vanessa. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." Working late. Right. I forwarded the message to Detective Hanley with a note. Evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud. How's that warrant coming? His response was immediate. Almost there. Keep them talking. Keep them talking. I could do that. At lunch, I drove to Murphy's Tavern to see Eddie. He was restocking the bar, moving cases of beer with the efficiency of someone who'd been doing manual labor his whole life. When he saw me, he frowned. You look like hell, he said. Feel worse. Eddie, remember that hypothetical question I asked? About someone stealing from you? Yeah. Not so hypothetical anymore. He set down the case and gave me his full attention. Eddie might pour drinks for a living, but he'd seen enough of the world to understand when things were serious. How bad? Bad enough to ruin lives. Yours or theirs? That depends on how smart I am. Eddie nodded slowly. What do you need? A witness, someone trustworthy, someone who can verify what they see. When? Soon, maybe tonight. He didn't ask for details. That was Eddie, loyal to the bone, no questions asked. It's why I trusted him more than anyone else in my life. I'll be ready, he said. Back at the office, Brent was on the phone with the Henderson people, pushing for the accelerated timeline. I listened from my desk, taking notes. Every word was evidence, every lie another nail in his coffin. Absolutely, he was saying. We can have everything ready by Monday, Tuesday at the latest. Tuesday. That gave me 4 days to set the trap. I opened my laptop and began typing. Not a business email or a financial report, but something much more important. A detailed summary of every theft, every fraudulent transaction, every piece of evidence I'd gathered. I copied Detective Hanley, our company lawyer, and the Henderson Corporation's legal department. Then I saved it as a draft and scheduled it to send Monday morning at 9 a.m. Insurance, in case things went sideways. My phone rang. Vanessa calling from her late meeting. Hi, honey, she said, and I could hear restaurant noise in the background. Just wanted to check on you. Still feeling okay? Fine, I said. Where are you? Conference room. Boring stuff. I'll probably be here until 10. Conference room. The background noise sounded more like Chez Laurent, the French place downtown where we'd had our first anniversary dinner, where Brent was apparently taking my wife on dates. Don't work too hard, I said. Love you, she said, the words automatic, meaningless. Love you too, I replied, and hung up. Brent was watching me from across the office. Everything okay? Perfect, I said. Everything's perfect. And for the first time in months, I meant it. Because perfect wasn't about happiness or love or trust. Perfect was about having all the pieces in place, all the evidence gathered, all the players positioned exactly where you needed them. Perfect was about being ready to destroy the people who thought they were destroying you. Monday morning was going to be very interesting. Saturday morning, I did something I hadn't done in months. I smiled at my wife over breakfast. A real smile, not the grimace I'd been wearing like a mask. Vanessa noticed immediately. You seem better, she said, buttering her toast with delicate precision. More relaxed. I am, I said, and it was true. There's something liberating about knowing exactly where you stand, even when it's on quicksand. I've been thinking about us, about the future. Her hand paused halfway to her mouth. Oh? The Henderson deal is going to set us up nicely. Maybe we should take a vacation afterward, somewhere tropical. Just the two of us. The toast crumbled between her fingers. That sounds... nice. Nice. The word hung in the air like smoke. Everything was nice with Vanessa lately, nice and safe and completely hollow. I was thinking the Cayman Islands, I continued, watching her face. I hear it's beautiful this time of year. Her coffee cup rattled against the saucer. Just slightly, but I caught it. The Cayman Islands, where Brent had been hiding their stolen money, where they'd probably planned to disappear together once the Henderson deal closed. The Caribbean might be too hot, she said quickly. Maybe somewhere in Europe instead? Whatever you want, sweetheart. We have all the time in the world to decide. But we didn't, and she knew it. Time was running out for both of them. That afternoon, I drove to the office under the pretense of catching up on work. The building was empty except for the security guard, who knew me well enough to wave me through without question. I had the place to myself. Brent's computer was password protected, but I'd watched him type it enough times to know the combination. Porsche, number 11. Subtle as a brick through a window. His email history was a treasure trove of incriminating evidence. Messages to offshore banks, communications with shell companies, and most damning of all, a folder labeled VH, filled with photos and explicit messages between him and my wife. I copied everything to a secure drive, then covered my tracks. By the time I left, there was no evidence I'd ever been there. Just like Brent had taught me during our early days as partners, always have a backup plan and never leave fingerprints. Sunday dinner at Vanessa's parents' house was a command performance I couldn't avoid. The Ashfords lived in a colonial mansion that screamed old money and older prejudices. They'd never approved of their daughter marrying a tradesman, even one who made more money than their trust fund generated. "Nicholas," Mrs. Ashford said, air-kissing my cheek with the warmth of a mortician, "you look tired." "Work's been demanding," I replied, accepting a glass of wine that probably cost more than most people's car payments. "Yes, Vanessa mentioned you've been traveling. Boston, wasn't it? Educational conference, professional development." Mr. Ashford harumphed from his leather chair. "In my day, men learned their trade through experience, not seminars. In his day, men also inherited their wealth instead of earning it, but I kept that observation to myself. I needed the Ashfords to like me, at least for a few more days." "How's business?" Mrs. Ashford asked, settling into her role as polite hostess. "Excellent. We're closing a major deal this week, $15 million in fees." Vanessa's wineglass froze halfway to her lips. She hadn't expected me to mention the Henderson deal, especially not the specific amount. I watched her parents' faces light up with greedy interest. $15 million? Mr. Ashford leaned forward. "That's quite substantial." "It is. Brent and I have worked very hard to build the business. Trust is everything in our industry." The word trust hit Vanessa like a physical blow. She excused herself to help her mother in the kitchen, leaving me alone with her father. Perfect. "Nicholas," he said, lowering his voice, "I hope you're being careful with that kind of money. There are people who might try to take advantage." "You're absolutely right, sir. I've learned to watch for the signs. Unexplained expenses, changes in behavior, people who suddenly have more money than they should." He nodded sagely, completely missing the irony. "Exactly. You can never be too careful about who you trust." In the kitchen, I could hear Vanessa and her mother talking in hushed tones. Something about complications and timing. I pretended not to notice when Vanessa stepped outside to make a phone call, probably warning Brent that I knew about the money. Good. Let them panic. Panicked people made mistakes, and I was counting on them to make several. The drive home was quiet. Vanessa stared out the passenger window, lost in thought. Finally, she spoke. "My parents like you," she said. "They like my money." "That's not fair." "Isn't it? Your father spent dinner talking about trust and betrayal. Ironic, don't you think?" She turned to look at me, her face pale in the dashboard light. "Nick, is everything okay? You've been acting strange lately." Strange. Not suspicious or paranoid this time, but strange. As if caring about your marriage and business was somehow abnormal. "I'm fine," I said. "Just focused on the future. Our future." "What do you mean?" "You'll see." That night I lay awake listening to Vanessa's breathing, planning the final act of our little drama. She thought she was playing chess, moving pieces around the board while I sat obliviously in the corner. But she'd forgotten something important about chess. The game isn't over until someone says checkmate. And I was very good at chess. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn clarity that made everything seem possible. I dressed carefully, my best suit, the navy one Vanessa had picked out for client meetings. If today was going to be a performance, I wanted to look the part. The office buzzed with nervous energy. The Henderson deal was scheduled to close at 2 p.m., and everyone knew how much was riding on it. $15 million in fees, plus the prestige of landing the biggest merger in our company's history. What they didn't know was that the money would never reach Brent's offshore accounts. What they didn't know was that Detective Hanley was already reviewing the warrant applications. What they didn't know was that by sunset, Harlow and Callahan Financial would become just Harlow Financial. "Big day," Brent said, appearing at my desk with his trademark smile. He looked confident, relaxed, a man without a care in the world. "The biggest," I agreed. "Everything ready on your end?" "Locked and loaded. The Henderson people are eager to close. I've already prepared the transfer authorizations." Transfer authorizations. The documents that would move their money through our accounts and, if Brent had his way, into his pockets. Too bad for him that I'd already flagged those accounts with the bank's fraud division. "Mind if I review them? Just to be safe." His smile flickered. "Of course. Though honestly, Nick, we've been through this a dozen times. Everything's clean." Clean. Like his conscience, presumably. I spent the morning reviewing every document, every contract, every piece of paper that would be signed that afternoon. To anyone watching, I looked like an obsessive accountant, double-checking his work. In reality, I was making sure the trap was perfect. At 11:30, my phone buzzed. A text from Detective Hanley. "Warrants approved, moving at 3 p.m., keep them in the building." 3 p.m. 1 hour after the Henderson deal closed. Perfect timing. I walked to Brent's office, where he was on the phone with someone, speaking in low tones. When he saw me, he quickly ended the call. "Henderson people?" I asked. "My lawyer, just dotting the I's and crossing the T's." His lawyer. Right. Probably making final arrangements for his disappearance. Too bad those plans were about to change. "Brent, we need to talk about the future of the company." He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "What about it?" "I've been thinking about expansion, maybe opening a West Coast office. You interested in relocating?" "West Coast?" He laughed. "Nick, we've got everything we need right here. Why complicate things?" Why indeed? Because in a few hours, his current arrangements were going to become very complicated. "Just a thought. We'll discuss it after Henderson closes." At noon, Vanessa texted, "Good luck today. Dinner to celebrate?" I texted back, "Absolutely. Somewhere special. Somewhere special, like the visiting room at the county jail." The Henderson people arrived at 1:30, a team of lawyers and executives led by their CFO, Patricia Wells. She was sharp, professional, and completely unaware that she was walking into the middle of a domestic drama that would make daytime television look subtle. "Mr. Harlow, Mr. Callahan," she said, shaking our hands. "Ready to make history?" "More than ready," Brent said, guiding them to the conference room. "This is going to be the beginning of a beautiful partnership." Beautiful partnership. He should have been a poet. The closing took exactly 47 minutes. Documents signed, funds transferred, handshakes all around. $15 million moved from Henderson's accounts to ours, minus fees and expenses. On paper, it was the culmination of months of hard work. In reality, it was the bait in the biggest trap I'd ever set. "Gentlemen," Patricia Wells said as her team packed up their briefcases, "it's been a pleasure doing business with you." "The pleasure's all ours," I said, meaning every word. They left at 2:52 p.m., 8 minutes until Detective Hanley arrived with his warrants, 8 minutes until Brent Callahan's world collapsed. "Well," Brent said, loosening his tie, "that went smoothly. I'll just make a few calls, transfer our fees to the appropriate accounts." "No rush," I said. "Take your time." He looked at me strangely. You seem calm for someone who just closed the biggest deal of his career. I'm at peace with it, I said. Sometimes you have to trust that everything happens for a reason. At exactly 3 p.m., the elevator doors opened, and Detective Hanley walked out, followed by 2 uniformed officers and a woman I didn't recognize. She carried herself with the confidence of someone used to being the smartest person in the room. "Nick," Hanley said, "thanks for your cooperation. This is Agent Sarah Martinez from the FBI Financial Crimes Unit." FBI. I'd expected local police, maybe state investigators. But the FBI meant this was bigger than I'd imagined. "Mr. Callahan," Agent Martinez said, approaching Brent's office, "we have warrants to search these premises and arrest you on charges of wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit theft." Brent's face went white, then red, then white again. He looked at me with something between confusion and dawning horror. "Nick," he said, "what's going on?" "Justice," I replied. Finally. The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Agents securing computers, officers reading rights, Brent demanding lawyers and explanations. Through it all, I stood in the center of the chaos, watching my former friend and business partner get exactly what he deserved. "How long have you known?" Agent Martinez asked me quietly. "Months, but I only had proof as of last week." "Why didn't you come to us sooner?" I looked at Brent, now handcuffed and being led toward the elevator. "Because I wanted to be sure, and because some traps take time to set properly." She nodded, understanding. "We'll need a full statement, but you did good work here. Most people would have just fired him. Most people hadn't watched him destroy their marriage along with their business." My phone buzzed, a text from Vanessa. "Heard sirens. Everything okay?" I texted back, "Everything's perfect. See you at home." But first, I had one more stop to make. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway at 6:30. Vanessa's car was there, but no lights were on inside. She was probably hiding, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much trouble she was in. The answer to both questions was, all of it. I found her in the living room, sitting in the dark with a glass of wine. She'd changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a sweater. Casual, like she was planning to run. Or like she'd already given up. "Hello, sweetheart," I said, turning on the lights. She winced at the brightness. "Nick, I heard about Brent. It's terrible." "Terrible," I agreed, though not entirely surprising. "What do you mean?" I sat down across from her, studying her face. Even now, caught red-handed, she was going to try to play innocent. It was almost admirable. "I mean, a forensic accountant tends to notice when someone's stealing money. It's literally what I do for a living." Her wine glass trembled in her hands. "You think Brent was stealing?" "I don't think anything, Vanessa, I know. Bank records, transaction logs, offshore accounts. I have it all. The question is, how much did you know?" "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and opened the photos I'd taken from Brent's computer. Explicit messages between them, planning their escape, discussing how to hide the money. Her face on the screen, unmistakable. "Still don't know what I'm talking about?" She set down the wine glass with shaking hands. "Nick, I can explain." "Please do. Explain how my wife and business partner have been stealing from me for months. Explain how you've been planning to disappear with stolen money. Explain how you thought I was too stupid to notice." "It wasn't supposed to happen this way," she said, tears starting to flow. It started as friendship, then became something more." "Friendship. Is that what we're calling theft now?" I didn't know about the money, not at first. Brent said he was protecting investments, moving things around for tax purposes. "And when did you figure out he was lying?" She was quiet for a long moment. "Last month, when he showed me the account balances." Last month. A month of knowing her lover was a thief, a month of planning to run away with stolen money, a month of lying to my face every single day. "Why?" I asked. We had a good life, the business was successful, we were comfortable. Why throw it all away? You don't understand, she said, standing up and pacing to the window. You're safe, Nick. Predictable. Brent made me feel alive. Alive enough to commit felonies? It wasn't supposed to be permanent. We were going to pay it back once we were established somewhere else. With what money? The money you stole? She turned to face me, and for the first time, I saw something other than fear in her eyes. Anger, as if I was the one who'd done something wrong. You're not innocent in this, she said. You ignored me for years, buried yourself in spreadsheets and client meetings while I withered away in this house. So you decided to bury yourself in my business partner instead. The slap came fast, but I saw it coming, caught her wrist before her hand reached my face. Don't, I said quietly. You've done enough damage. She jerked her hand away, rubbing her wrist. What happens now? Now you pack a bag and find somewhere else to stay. The FBI will probably want to talk to you tomorrow. The FBI? Did I forget to mention that? Brent's theft crossed state lines. Federal crime. They're very thorough. She sank back into her chair, the fight going out of her. Nick, please. We can work this out. I'll testify against Brent, help them recover the money. We can start over. Start over. As if 12 years of marriage could be reset like a computer program. There's no we anymore, Vanessa. I filed for divorce this morning. Papers will be served tomorrow. You can't do this to me. I'm not doing anything to you. You did this to yourself. She started crying then, real tears this time. Not the manipulative tears she'd used to get out of trouble before, but the broken sobs of someone who'd finally realized the consequences of their choices. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. What about the house, my things? The house is in my name, has been since we bought it. Your things will be packed and ready for pickup tomorrow. You planned this, she said, looking up at me with red-rimmed eyes. You've been planning this whole thing. I've been protecting myself. There's a difference. She stood up again, this time with purpose. I need to call my lawyer. Good idea. You're going to need one. As she walked toward the stairs, she paused at the doorway. I did love you, Nick. Once. I know, I said. That's what makes this so much worse. After she left, I sat in the quiet house, listening to her move around upstairs, packing, probably, making phone calls, trying to figure out how to salvage something from the wreckage of her life. But there was nothing left to salvage. I'd made sure of that. My phone rang. Eddie, checking in. Saw the news, he said. Your business partner got arrested. Former business partner, and yes, he did. You okay? Better than okay. Justice feels good, Eddie. What about Vanessa? I looked up at the ceiling, where I could hear her footsteps pacing back and forth. What about her? She going down too? That depends on how smart she is, and how good her lawyer is. And if she's not smart? I smiled for the first time all day. Then she's going to learn what it feels like to lose everything.